Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Yaseen DIY. This is Ahmed, and we're back working on the 4Runner. So, sure you guys will already watched the last series where I pretty much like pepped it up and gave it a nice tune-up. This time we're actually going to be upgrading a lot of parts on it, mainly the front suspension, mainly the rear suspension, the transmission, which is going to be a big one. We're also adding some fog lights and a couple of other things in there. So, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to take me some time to kind of like get all the footage out there. But without further ado, this video is going to be about doing the front suspension. Today, I'm going to be showing you guys how to go from this to that. So what we did is we got some new brakes on there. This looks dirty because it rained yesterday. But we got new brakes on there. We pretty much rebuilt the manual locking hub, some new gaskets and everything in there, and re-greased it. We have new brake pads, rotor. We got a new shock, and we pretty much, I used the wire wheel, and I wire wheeled the entire wheel well and all the other components in here and some of the chassis. And we went ahead and painted it with some Rust-Oleum, you know, just to kind of make it look a little bit nicer. One thing missing, you might have noticed already, is I don't have the stabilizer bar link. They would sit here and go, you know, through under to the other side. That's because I already took it off. I already painted it, got new bushings on it. I'll show you guys later, but I basically need it off to get the transmission off eventually. So I'm not gonna be putting that back on, but I will show you guys what to do to take it off. So if we go back, of course, we're gonna get started here. Really, we just want to have the car jacked up. I put the wheels just under there for safety, just in case. But once that's off, we're gonna be starting with taking off the entire manual hub. There's BB. I don't know what he's looking for. BB, what are you looking for? Probably looking for another tool for me to take. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna be taking off the manual hub, and then we're gonna be getting back to the brakes, clean everything, and we'll go through it. So let's get started. I went ahead and WD-40'd pretty much every bolt that I'm gonna be taking off. You don't have to, but if your truck is also 30 years old, and if you're watching this, it probably is, then it might be a good idea for those stuck bolts. These are not too bad. All right, so these are just 10 millimeters. All right. After all the bolts are off, you're able to just freely slide this out. Make sure it's in the free position before you take it out. Otherwise this will pop out. And we're gonna go ahead and go through and clean this, get the old gasket off, and I'll show you guys how to do that later. For these bolts, we're gonna do the same thing except with a 12 millimeter, and they're a little bit hard to take off, so just use a screwdriver to lock the wheel in place. And so once we get those broken off, you're also going to want to take off this bolt. It's another 12 millimeter. And for this one, you actually need to lock the entire drive shaft. So you just want to get your screwdriver, place it somewhere that sort of makes sense to block the drive shaft. Okay, there you go. Hope you guys are able to see that. Basically, I'm just sticking the screwdriver between the bolts in here where the drive shaft is turning, and you should be able to free that. Okay. This bolt comes off with 2 washers, one small, one big. Let's leave that off to the side. And then keep taking the other 6 bolts off that hold the hub body. All right. All right, now that we got all the bolts off, everything is unbolted, this is ready to come off, but you will see that it is kind of stuck. So you want to do is kind of want to hammer a little bit gently. You don't want to, ruin anything here, but just kind of hammer. And you can see how that popped out. Once these start popping out, they don't have to pop out like that. Sometimes they pop out just a little bit. We can basically get this off. Stick a screwdriver in there and pry it off. All right. As you can see, this is finally off. We're gonna clean up all this old grease and put a new one in there. And check the bearing and make sure everything's all right. Okay, leave that off to the side. And now we get here. So you basically have two locking nuts over here, sort of like a locking washer in between them. And then after that, you get to the bearing. You can get, I think it's like a 54mm socket to take these off. I don't have that, so I'm just going to be using a hammer, a hammer and a screwdriver, a flathead. And basically you just kind of want to find a ridge on here. Well, first actually there's a little tab, and you want to open up that tab. A little bit stubborn, I'm going to use a little bit WD-40. There we go. Let me see it moving. And you just want to kind of repeat that until it comes off. And this is the locking washer with the tab that you bent in and out. Clean up all this old grease. Yeah, real nasty. And then anyways, you want to do the same thing again. You might even see some markings already on there from the previous person who did this job. Alright. And they shouldn't be too bad to take off. I like wearing gloves when I'm doing this job because, as you can see, it gets all that old grease. It's really nasty. So you can actually start taking off the brake caliper now, so that this entire thing comes off, and because the nuts are already off, this will just get pushed out. So that's what I'm gonna do it. So get your breaker bar with a 17mm on it, place it on there, and then you're gonna want to break this. Okay. It's super easy. There's one. And there's two. If you're gonna reuse your hardware, which I don't completely suggest doing because I ran into an issue with the other side where I reused the hardware, ended up actually having to retap and rethread the knuckle arm, which was kind of scary because I didn't want to mess it up. But I ended up going with new hardware, but if you're using the old hardware, be sure not to lose this washer. Otherwise, you're gonna run into a clearance issue with this hitting the back of the rotor. And the issue I'm running into right here, let me get you guys closer. As you can see, my rotor is completely warped to the point where there's a lip here that you can grab onto. And so what's happening is that the brake pads are actually latching on that rotor. So you're gonna want to kind of clear these up a little bit. I might even take off this hardware to make it a little bit easier, but just find a way to kind of wiggle this thing out, especially if you have a really bad warped rotor like I do. So keep that in mind. All right, there we go. And the caliper is off. Put that off to the side. Now once the caliper is off, you're able to get the rotor out. That slid off a little bit too fast. And then the bearing comes out and it's all off. I'm gonna stick back that on there. So this is the cover for the bearing. And this is the bearing that's on there. You're gonna wanna inspect these for damage. You might as well replace them, but I don't think mine are too bad, so I'm actually gonna reuse them. I'm just gonna clean them up, degrease them, and then repack them with new grease. So that's the plan. All right, that's the bearing. Get that in there. And then we'll go ahead and slide this off. Okay. To install a new rotor, you're gonna need to take off these 6 bolts that are inside of it over here. And these connect the actual hub to the rotor. I'll show you guys how to take those off. Helps to have somebody with you, or either like a crowbar to stick in here. I'll show you guys what I mean by that later. But we're actually gonna be replacing the stud as well. And we'll show you guys how to get that done. All right, now that we got the hub entirely off and the rotor, we are gonna go ahead and take off the shock. So for the shock, you're gonna need a 22mm socket, and you're gonna need a pretty long 22mm wrench. You're gonna want your 22mm, just put it down right in here, get it towards that nut. Once it's back there, it'll pretty much sit on it, and that's good. Grab your breaker bar with extension on it and a 22mm socket. Get it on there and take this off. Now, pre-soaking these in WD-40 helps out a ton. So just keep that in mind. And then you can take it off by hand. Some nut and a washer. And now you just want to gently tap this out. Alright, I'll have to find that bolt. Once that's off, we need to take off this top nut. This could be different depending on your design. One of yours might have like a star nut up here. Another one might just have like this little ridge you can grab onto. Sometimes you might just have to take this off and grab hold of the actual shaft. But the basic idea is whenever you turn this nut, the entire shaft will turn. And so you really need to get a hold of this and then break the nut off. I'm using a pair of pliers, and I'm using a 14mm wrench. And I'm gonna grab hold of this with my pair of pliers. These are not in the best position right now, but that's okay. There we go. At the top, you can just take it off. Once that is off, you can take off the little bushings on top. And now you just want to knock this out of the way. Just take it out. That easy, not a problem at all. All right, everybody, now that we got all the parts off that we needed to get off, and as I mentioned earlier, the stabilizer bar, we also just got that off a while back. I'll show you guys the installation once we get to it, but you know, for now that's off. So now we're gonna be basically cleaning everything up and getting everything to look like that side. The way we're gonna do that is mainly we're using the wire wheel. I have 2 wire wheels over here. I'm gonna be alternating between them depending on the part. Make sure you're wearing a mask and eye safety, because you don't want to be breathing in any of the stuff that comes off of there. I'm also going to be using a couple of brushes to get in spots and take off dust and all that. And I'm going to be using like a paint scraper. This actually comes in really handy, sometimes more than that. After that, I'm going to be spraying everything with brake cleaner and then wiping it down with a couple of microfiber towels, which I don't have here right now. Then finally, once everything is clean, I'm hitting it with this Rust-Oleum Rust Reformer. I don't really have rust, to be honest. I mean, I have a little bit, but nothing that's actually eating away at components, just surface rust. But this kind of works as a primer if you want to paint it. It also kind of works as paint itself, honestly, if you don't care too much. I don't. I just want it to look good, and so I'm using this. Feel free to leave in the comments what you think about this, if you've used it before, if you've not. I've heard really good things, but I also heard it doesn't last as long. I'm okay with that, so I'm using it. All right, so I'm gonna get everything ready, and I'll show you guys a little bit of the process. I'm not gonna show you all of it, but basically any part that is visible to you right now, clean and paint, except obviously for like drive shafts. Make sure to actually block this off. And so yeah, let's get to it. Want to say hi, BB? Say hi. All right, so the wheel well is pretty clean. I just sprayed it with some, sorry, I have the mask on. I just sprayed it with some brake cleaner, and now I'm just kind of going and drying it off, cleaning off all the dirt, and then I'm gonna hit it with some paint. Yep. You guys get the idea, and you just want to keep going. I did the top, let that dry, and then I'll clean up the bottom, and then do the bottom. And we just keep going until everything is painted. All right, guys, I just finished spraying everything down with the Rust-Oleum Rust Reformer. And this looks pretty good. I didn't really care about overspray and stuff like that. I just put on a couple of coats and pretty much anything that I can see that I don't have to try hard to get to. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I like it personally. Some of you might have other ways of doing this, and that's totally fine. This is just the way I'm doing it and the way that works for me for now. So yeah, moving on, we're gonna go ahead and install our new brake pads, and then install our new tie rod. This one is shot, and then our new shock, rotor, and then gonna rebuild the manual locking hub a little bit, just clean it up and re-grease it. So yeah, we'll get to it.